Thanks, Rich, and what a delight to be here at this wonderful Josephy Center. It didn't exist 50 years ago when I first started wandering around here. Some of you know that my wife and I just retired and moved to LaGrange about a year ago. Those of us who are getting along in age, I think I always told good stories about that, but she was a well-known professor in Georgetown University in Washington, D.C., and I was retired then from some of the environment I worked with. And so when she announced me she's going to retire next year, what's the first thing an 80-year-old and a 75-year-old say to each other? She said, "Where do you want to die?" We didn't mean it morosely. It was just, a matter of just one of the, my young, oldest son points out to me that the mortality rate is 100%. So anyhow, so we said, well, we loved Washington. 40 happy, successful years there, doing battles and things that you know all about. I want to talk to you about, but it became so obvious. Northeast Oregon was a beautiful place for meeting and plant. There's wonderful people everywhere, and we'd rather be here. So here we are. And so happy driving in with my friends and just come down to mine and around the bend. And there they are. Well, I was right up there. My heart starts pounding all over again. And seeing the places and the familiar names of mine, and I remember the 1972 effort to add to that. And then there's other Canaan that I do want to talk about a little bit. Rich asked me if I wanted a projector. Well, I do have hundreds and hundreds of slides from those early days of rescuing hills came from the dam, but they're all in my basement, so I've never seen them. But I did bring a prop over there, which I'll bring up later. But that's built on the past. There's a nice letter, message from Senator Packard, and it seems got some water damage in my basement somewhere. But I want to tell you a few stories about that, because how did someone, well, like me, born and raised in Columbus, Ohio, never saw a mountain before, anything like that, ever get here? And I'm most interested in people's aha moments. How did you get to be where you are? How did you come to this place in this time and all these things? And everybody has a different story. And mine was that I was raised in Columbus, Ohio, and I was raised a strong Republican. Both my father and my grandfather were editorial cartoonists for the Columbus Dispatch. But on that kind of an income, so I always had to have summer jobs and winter jobs and things like that, and scholarships, and all through college and in the law school in Michigan. And the reason I'm talking to you here today, my aha moment, came at the end of my first year of law school, which I barely made it, by the way, but I was doing my grades. I had to get a summer job. Well, I'm tired of slinging a pitcher shovel and hockey in Columbus, Ohio. I wanted to do something else. And so I got a job in a place called Glacier National Park, Alaska, of course, right? But I'll never forget the moment taking the train from Minneapolis, clickety-clack all the way across. This is some big kind of country, I thought. We're still going 24 hours later, we're only in North Dakota, still going like that. And finally, after the middle of the second day, we stopped at East Glacier, stepping off the train there. And there was this magnificent range of mountains. You all know it, I've seen it. Mountains, I never saw a mountain before in my life. And the ice-pure creeks tumbling down from the heavens, and the sweet smell of the pines and the wrens and things like that. And it was like some old lost chord and plucked and singing. I didn't even know it was there. It's been singing ever since. You're home. You're home. You're home. So then it only became a question of where to move to after I got out of law school. No, not Columbus anymore, anything like that. And knew it had to be out west in the 60s when I graduated. It was still gold in California. Not so much now, but it was then. That's where everyone would go. But it was too expensive to take the bar exam. And in Oregon, too. And in Montana, you couldn't pass the bar exam, so the rumor was, unless you'd been to the University of Montana, well, you want to take that, you can only have one shot. So it's Washington State, only $500, I think, but had a mountain range on either side and salt water in the middle. And my first wife, Rachel, she was Boston, so it was perfect. So that's where we were. So we went out there, and luckily I got a job doing that's what my law school grades were, and I was happily practicing law, say, 64, 65, and but I was mostly there for the country, climbing the North Cascades, magnificent peaks, and I thought I could climb one every weekend of my life and never get through them all. But one day when I was hiking to a especially beautiful place called Barkley Lake, which is up there, I was especially enchanted with the Northwest Forest, because they don't have trees 8 feet thick and 150 feet high and as old as Charlemagne out there in the Midwest. At least they don't anymore. But I was enchanted, and they were always the wonderful gateways into the high country that I loved too. But in Barkley Creek, and I understand the pros and cons here, but it was a little bit too much to the lake, because you almost got to the lake before you saw anything. And so I was unhappy about that. And I said, well, maybe we should protect some of these places. And I heard about this group called the North Cascades Conservation Council. I joined up, and it was a volunteer meeting. We worked on those particular kind of issues. And but then after a while, I was unable, it's like so many of you are in this room spending so much time as a volunteer when you're working on these things, because environmental groups didn't have any money. We were even called environmentalists, and they're called conservationists. Maybe some of you remember. Anyhow, I was asked by people said to me, Evans, you ought to join that Sahara Club down in California. The Sierra Club, of course. All 40,000 members across the country then in 1967. And I did. And then I got offered the job of being the Northwest representative of that, leaving my law practice, which was going on in law practice. But I was able to do just this, go around and save the Northwest, whatever our definition of it. And I actually thought about it for a whole weekend. I thought, when I get paid, you agree to what I'm doing anyhow, I would do anyhow. And so that was how it all began for me. I just fell into it. But I didn't really know what it really meant to me. I knew about the North Cascades, but that was all I knew about. I never heard of Hell's Canyon before then. But I remember in May of that year, my local bosses, the executive committee of the Sierra Club, and the Federation, two groups split my $6,000 a year salary, I think, something like that. And so across, a new issue came up. Across the deserts of eastern Washington and the rivers out here, and I would have ever been there on the west side, came one Floyd Harvey. Some of you may remember Floyd, great river boatman from here. And he pled, he said, there's another dam going on in this great place called Hell's Canyon. And please save it, please do something. Can the Sahara Club do something about it? And so my bosses said, okay, Evans, look into that. Well, I was very unhappy because I knew it wasn't possible. There was only one issue in the Supreme Court that you probably already all know about, who was going to get to build the dam. But they didn't make that decision. And then Justice Douglas came out with what we lawyers call an obiter dictum decision. It's Latin for meaning, fancy Latin meaning a decision that had nothing to do with the facts of the case. But he just persuaded all his friends, that, because Justice Douglas loved these places to do it. And so what I saw in my copy of the Lewiston Morning Tribune that morning on June 6th, burned in my brain, 1967, I never remember here, and said, Supreme Court sends Hell's Canyon case back on remand. Well, I'm a lawyer, I know what remand means. It means a new trial. So what am I going to do? I'm sucking my thumb, I'm 28 years old, and you've got to do something, and I've got orders to do it. So I didn't know what else to do, so I wrote a letter to the Supreme Court. Hi, you don't know who I am, I'm out here in the provinces, and I see this thing. Does a remand mean anybody can intervene? Because I'm a lawyer, I know what intervene meant. They've set innocent times in for elections. And finally I got a letter back about July saying, yeah, I guess you can if you want to, Sonny. The deadline is August 31st. And so, okay. And so I did what every aspiring lawyer does, young or old. I went to the clerk of the King County, that's Seattle County, and we go to the clerk, the law clerk there, and I said, please give me the form book for petitions for wills and divorces and marriage, the way the lawyers look out forms. So I said, please get me the petition form book for petitions of intervention before the Federal Power Commission. So, what's the Federal Power Commission? What are you talking about? Things like that. So I realized I had to make it up myself, and I hadn't even seen the place yet, but I read books about it. So I gave the petition to Rich, I think. It has all the warehouses about shepherds and salmon and wild rivers and things. I've never seen it before, but I knew it was a magnificent place. And took that down. Then I had to call the, we had a plan. It can't just be the old 28-year-old me, like my thumb here at the plaintiff. It's got to have some credibility to it. So I called up the president of the Sahara Club, Ed Wayburn. I had to explain to the president what I planned for us. That was second, was in time. And then the Federation of Western Outdoor Club was the other payer of my salary. I had to get local people. I couldn't be just someone in Seattle, what about? So I found the Idaho Alpine Club. They were on the list of members. So I called them up and said, well, some of you guys be joined as plaintiffs, and they were glad to do because they were all river runners, and some of you met some like Boyd Norton, Jim Campbell, and so on. And they were the first Hell's Canyon Preservation Council founders, and later now GHCC. But anyhow, so we got them on. So August 31st, I got all 20 copies. This is way before computers or anything like that. Signed, sealed, notarized, and delivered, and sent on airmail. Took them out of SeaTac Airport, shipped them off. And they got there on time, thank goodness, and the stuff really hit the fan then. And I want to read you a little excerpt from what it was like. All at once, it dawned on me and my little self that this is for real, this is serious. It's a
we didn't call it bluff, it was a legal participatory intervention, but it brought the dam juggernaut to a halt. At least we're going to have a tryout, and we'll see. Might give us time to do other things. So, I'm going to read you what I wrote there because I was scared to death. Then the trial judge says, okay, we're going to have a new trial September 27th, Old Portland Courthouse. Everybody get there. And so I'm just going to read you what I wrote. We'll talk about this some years ago. Next thing I know, I intervened, and people started calling me up. I thought to myself, uh-oh, this is big time. Now what am I going to do? I politely told senior partner of our old law firm that dams killed too many of the great rivers of the Northwest already. We were going to fight and convince the FPC that the license should be rejected. We were going to put on a case which argued that the Snake should be a wild river forever. I didn't tell them how we were going to do it because I had the slightest idea myself. No one had ever done it before. Next thing I got was a summons from the trial judge. You will appear with all the other parties at a preliminary hearing at the Portland Federal Courthouse on September 27th. My heart sank further. What does one do at a preliminary hearing in a federal court? I hadn't the slightest idea about that either. I was not a real lawyer anymore. My responsibilities would be to be the representative of the whole Northwest from the North Pole of California. The North Cascades Park and Lawrenceville's there, and the Oregon Cascade, and so on and so on. Struggle over freeway in Seattle. So I called up my hiking and climbing friend, Tom Brecker. Tom was about 5 years older, very experienced trial lawyer, common competent. Can you help? We can't pay much, I said, but we have a chance to save a whole river here. Tom was a great conservationist. Liked the idea. I told him all I could about this mysterious Great Canyon that which I had not yet seen. Justice Douglas's opinion. My conviction that the FPC proceeding was our only hope of slowing things down until we could fashion a political solution to save it permanently. How and what, we would just have to figure out as we move along. But for now, we had to act and play out the game, whatever that game was. September 27th, Old Federal Courthouse, 9 a.m. 30 attorneys gathered in the ancient dark oak paneled courtroom. Represented were not just the contenders for the, quote, honor of actually building that last dam, but also those who wanted to make sure they got their share of the final goodies. The three lower Snake River states, just about every chamber of commerce, labor union, Indian tribe, irrigation interests, and power users in the region. These were the players who had divided up and pledged the Northwest Great Rivers for the previous 3 decades. 28 of the 30 favored the dam as they each took their turn. We assembled in a semicircle around and under the judge's bench, Tom and I at the far end. The judge scowled down at us, then began at the other end. Each party will now make its opening statement. I listened for clues about what we were to be up against politically as well as matters of law. After a while, I realized that my friend and I were receiving a daunting yet fascinating insight into the psyches of those who held the power to dam the Northwest rivers, and had done so. Lawyer after lawyer recited his client's interest in their stake in the proposed dam in Hills Canyon, and why it had to be built. Some supported one builder, others the other, but all delivered the most compelling speeches about why this had to be this one last dam. It took all morning. Before noon, just before noon, the judge finally got to me. He leaned over the bench, scowled again, saying harshly, "Mr. Evans, does the Sierra Club really have anything to add to these proceedings?" "Well, yes, Your Honor, for please the court," I staggered. I'm sure that my voice was squeaking in some kind of falsetto, perhaps at least that might disguise the sound of my pounding heart. Quote, "The Sierra Club would like to make a statement. We believe that the highest and best use of the Snake River in Hills Canyon is in its free-flowing natural state. And we intend to put on a case which will demonstrate this fact. We believe that there are other ways to provide the electric power of the Northwest needs, but there's no way to replace what will be lost if the dam is built." I could almost feel the eyeballs rolling. You heard the faint snorts of contempt, sensed the head shaking behind me as the other lawyers audibly shifted in their seats. I thought I could hear their whispers. "This stuff is for real. He really means it. What idiot is he?" But now at last, the words had been said in public. We were there. We would fight to the finish for the great gorges of the Snake. I felt a strange exhilaration as I walked back to my chair. The sensation would override my forebodings of a huge and mostly unknown task ahead of us. There would be no turning back now. Anyhow, that was one of the series of installments that I've done. That was fascinating, just to get into it, and it shows that Anybody could do these things if you just want to seize the opportunity or try it or have a lucky break like we did. And so we did, and so the trial went on, and one thing I did, since I'm officially part of the case, I demanded public hearings, not just legal hearings with cross-examinations and all this lawyer talk, but public hearings. Because this is a resource that affects the whole Northwest. And I demanded them for Portland and Lewis and Iowa. And I knew we had lots of good members in Portland, and we would have a good public turnout there. Lewis and I wasn't so sure. So I drove all around this part of the world. We probably found more than 1 or 2 people that time, but we found a lot in Lewis. And so the hearings went on in 1970 or so, and went very well from our standpoint. But the best thing it did from standpoint, since we're talking about the early days of Hell's Canyon, is it got national publicity. Because this was the era, Earth Day, the first Earth Day was 1970, although once we were called environmentalists. This was the era of the dams going on in the Grand Canyon, which was a huge national issue. And I remember writing an article saying, hey, we got something even deeper up here. And this is our dam, so it's a huge publicity to it. It was a sympathetic audience. And that was how Linda cross-examination went back and forth. There were public hearings, and the lawyers for the other side understand. They said, this guy Evans ought to get disbarred. He should go off this thing. You can't just cross-examine during the morning and then go on public TV at night and exhort things. And I said, but Your Honor, I'm the only one. There's no one else. So they let me stay in the case, at least, and we did. And so that went on back and forth, not to bother you with it all, except that's not good enough. We're there, and so that I would call it the juggernaut. There was 18, as you know, there's 18 other dams on the Snake. This is about the last free-flowing undammed place. And we can't just say have a lawsuit about it anyway. We have to pass a bill. Well, how do you pass a bill? What do you do with all that? Well, I knew a little bit about passing a bill for the previous experience down the North Cascades and running back to Washington. And it's not all corrupt the way it is. I was an environmental lobbyist, We wrote bills too, just like many other people did. And we had our friends too. So, but we didn't have a champion. I drafted a bill, which is sitting over there, and I'll show you in a minute, that would protect the place. But we didn't have a champion in the House or the Senate. What were we going to do? Well, the 1968 elections brought in a new Republican senator, Bob Packwood. Some of you remember that name. And he was there, and we thought, well, let's approach him. Maybe he knows about it. So I'll never forget being in Senator Packwood's office in the summer of 1969, when the trial was still going on and so on. And we took Boyd Norton's pictures. There's the one exhibited here. Boyd and I were there together, his pictures and my mouth together, talked to him about this place, and he looked at the pictures, he said, gee, Zooey, is all this in my state? And we said, yes, sir, it is, sir. So he said, give me a copy of that bill. And so I gave him, like that, and it was different, my own draft of it, consulting with all colleagues and so on. And he took it, and he tells a funny story about it later. Later that year, or the next, he hadn't introduced anything yet, but he wanted to look at it. So he went on a famous float trip too, NBC TV crew and one raft, and him and another, and me and the GHCC staff and another. And it was well publicized, and this is the era, remember it all. And there was Packwood, his first river trip ever. And we stopped just above Granite Creek, and we were going downstream, and all the Granite Creek, the biggest records on the river, and so on. You can hear them out there. And there was a campfire, and those of us who'd been there before knew what was coming tomorrow. And so Packwood calls out, and he had a six-pack of beer right there too, and he did one or two, and he said, Brock, what do you guys really want from all this? I said, well, has anybody got a pen? Someone produced anybody got a map. Someone produced a hobby map of the 2 states. And has anybody got a pen? Someone produced a felt tip pen. And so I drew boundaries around roughly 650,000 acres that we'd all agreed to earlier. I didn't make it myself. We spent a long time on this. And I gave it to him. And he tells a story, and he told it when he resigned in the Congressional Record years later. He said, you think this big fat cat lobbyist tell us what to do here in the Senate? How about little old Brock Evans and his HCPC people tell us what to do? So he tells the story that when he took my map and felt tip pen and the language we already drafted, and he went back to Washington, and he gave it to the Legislative Council. That's what he did. He wanted to do this, and they said, draft this up in proper legal form and so on. And the way he tells the story is they called him back about 4 o'clock that afternoon, and he said, Senator, do you realize that was a felt tip pen? and it's a quarter mile wide. Where do you want us the boundaries to be? You have to say, take them out as far as you possibly can. So there are sessions like that, and finally, to wind up this part of the story, by 1971 or so, the trial was over, the three-year trial. And of course, the trial judge ruled for the power companies. And by then, they'd done a very smart political thing. We joined together instead of fighting for it. Now just them against these crazy environmental attacks on the state. And so the trial judge said, well, I'm going to grant this license. But I've heard so much testimony from all your witnesses about wild rivers and the values of hunting and fishing and the natural states, that I'm going to give you 3 years. The license won't take effect until 1975. So you guys have 3 years to pass a bill if you can. So the next 3 years, many of you in the room part of the bill, that was our campaign to use that bill. Now, show it to you because it's kind of interesting. Probably not too much to pass around. This when it passed, packet sent around a bunch of them, but there's a nice letter from him on it. And this is an act to establish the Hills Canyon National Recreation Area in the states of Oregon and Idaho and for other purposes. Public Law 94-199, December 31st, 1975. So I'll leave it up here if you want to look at it. See, and apologize for the water story. My basement got flooded once and what happened to it. So there was that. And there's so many other stories about these kind of things. Let me just wind up this part saying it was such a joy to be retired here and among all really wonderful people everywhere. And look at our living room on all the streets I live in. And there I can see the mountains above the mine, seen many campaigns. And there's the E-Devil, the seven devils are there. To look at places that are, they're safe by my definition of the word, and our definition, and they're there for as much longer as the law makes it. What a joy. And what a joy it has been to fall into this so many years ago because of my own passion, which I'm sure all of you share for the same kind of things. I was telling somewhere that being environmentalists like this, for me, I feel home wherever I go. Any state being, they all have their local groups doing whatever it is, and you just call them up, say who you are, and they're open arm, you're there. My wife, who's better known than I am in her own field, gets invited to give speeches all over the world. And one day, about 20 years ago, she said, well, she's going to go to Bratislava, give a speech in Parliament there, in Slovakia, in the heart of Central Europe. And she said, is that in Yugoslavia? No, it's not in Yugoslavia. It's in the Czech Republic. So I'm not going to stay back here while she's going to give a speech in the heart of Central Europe. And so we made contact with the leading conservation groups there, which was trying to protect forests and wildlife, wolves, things like that. And we had them a wonderful time touring all over and seeing everything, and we were just taking in. And they didn't speak perfect English, but there was enough English to get around. I learned a little Slovak. Then a few years later, she was invited me to speak in Perth, Australia, about same subject. Oh my gosh, you can't get any farther from here than Perth, Australia, from Washington, D.C. And I'm not going to sit sucking my thumb back home while she's giving a speech in Perth, Australia. So I came along for the ride, paid my own way. And we landed in Sydney. Some of you have been there, I'm sure. But I said, honey, we just landed in Sydney. We got a little continent to go. We stopped to go to Los Angeles, which is Perth, on the other side of the continent. And I didn't know anybody there, and it was a beautiful, about 1 million people, actually, big city. And so what I do, I call up the Australian Wilderness Society. Never heard of it, they were in the phone book, and they speak English. And we were welcome and open arms, got the greatest tour of the Smoky Mountains and over there, and the coast and things like that. But that's what it's like to be part of such a cause, and among such people who love their land just like we do. This is Joy. Thank you for the joy of having me here. And thank you all. Yeah. Any questions you all may have?
So Brock, I'm reminded that with your looking at your documents that ironically the fight between various agencies ends up advancing your cause. Mm-hmm. The Corps of Engineers and can you tell us about the same thing happened in North Dakota. The Corps fought with the Bureau of Reclamation, right?
Correct.
Uh,
Yeah, it's true. You know, the government may or may not be too big, it certainly can be bureaucratic, and agencies have their own ethos,
Right.
their own culture, their own way of doing things. And in the North Dakota case, you know, there it was, the Bureau of Reclamation wants to build, irrigate things, and Corps of Engineers just wants to stop floods and so on. So you do get disagreements with it, and then once again, it's not the trick, but the thing to do is to find the right political champion, because Congress tells them what to do, and we can do it. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we succeed, but we can get a budget change. Like every year there are appropriations bill passes, you all know. They seem pretty arcane, but they are. But other side does it to our values. You get a sense that notwithstanding any of the provisions in the law, there should be no dam in the Red River of the North, for example. Or there should be a dam only for flood control, or only for irrigation. You can do it that way. What people who oppose, when we're concerned about logging in certain places, for example, they just did what New Gingrich did when they had Marine Congress in 1995, and they had something called the Contract with America. Well, we call it Contract on America because it got after all the environmental laws the way they do today here too. But, so the first bill they passed was a 300-page appropriations bill, you know, each one different paragraphs and things like that. And you have to read them carefully, which we all learn to read very carefully. And sure enough, there about page 56, in 2 or 3 paragraphs, there was one section. This is an appropriation rescission bill. It takes away from aid to education and foreign aid and adds, you know, adds and subtract. And this one had nothing to do about that. It said, notwithstanding any other provision of law, the amount of logging in the national forest is hereby doubled. And what that means is you can't go to court. You don't have all the other environmental laws there. So that's the things you need to watch out for and do for. And not arguing the merits or demerits of logging. We all need wood and we have to do it. Maybe we don't need it out of Olympic National Park or someplace like that. You know. So that's a long-winded answer to say what we would do when you're a lobbyist, and I guess I am a lobbyist, that's sure I am. And that's where all the green areas in the map came from. People like you working with people like us to do these things. You have to know what to do, and I think it's a remarkably democratic political system. We're lucky, and then the Jim Monteith, many times it's up, but we're lucky to live in a country where ordinary citizens like us can actually come and influence laws too. I would say 90% of all those green areas on the map you now see, whether they're wildlife refuges or wilderness areas, wouldn't be there except for ordinary citizens working for them. And we can do it too. And that's the rough and tumble of our politics. Sorry to go on so long-winded, but people should know that because one procedure I initiated in the 40 years I lived back there working for Audubon and Sierra Club was called Volunteer Training Week. Because like all good environment, we have citizen volunteers working in Georgia or Alabama or North Dakota or wherever. And to them, understandably, DC is a dread habitat. And you know, it's corruption and bad things. But well, it's not like that. So we pick up 20 volunteers at a time twice a year, bring them back at our expense for a whole week of just learning the habitat. Learning the habitats of the Rayburn building, the office building, the Capitol, and so on. And once you realize it's a habitat, like any other kind of habitat, it's got its turkeys, it's got its hawks and doves, and all people like that in there, then it's not so fearful. And once you make a contact with your senator or congressman, sure they want money, but why do they want that money? They want it so they can get on TV. Why on TV? So you look at it. But, so it all fits in together, I think, if you are able to work it out. And I feel so delighted to have been part of the last 50 years of it, because 50 years ago there was 10 million acres of wilderness areas, let's say, now there's 110. And we worked through the land, now there's 100 million acres of national parks. And there's much better forest management policy and things like that than there used to be. It's all much more sensitive these days. There was no such thing as recycling in 1967. That didn't come around until later. You think about, so when people tell me, well, the world's gone to pot, don't you know that? That means you've been drinking too much Potomac River water. What are you so optimistic about it? Well, I remember what it was like 50 years ago. I'm not going to bore you with it, but I did, I have a file now, it's called The Worst of Times. I keep that too, because I write about this people and it was the worst times when James Watt became Secretary of the Interior in 1980, right? And that was the end of it all. Then it was the worst time when Gingrich and the Contract with America became a time, and then they doubled the cut, we had the gun. Then it was the worst of times, starting about 2001 again. So here, I'm not going to read this to you, but it's fun. So I wrote this thing to myself, to my friends actually, in 2005, 12 years ago. And it says, so if things are so bad, why do I feel so good? And, you know, I go on and on. You know, we've been here before, friends. We've been here before in just as hard time, but we survived in the places we love us, survived them too. Here's another one I will read to you a little bit, if you don't mind indulging. This I wrote in 1995, 10 years later. No, 10 years earlier. And in December 1994, it seemed to the leadership of the U.S. environmental movement as if the end was very near, 1994. Swept into power for the first time in 40 years by an anti-President Clinton tide, promises to get the government off your back. Anti-environmentalists seized control of both House and the Senate. But this was no ordinary transfer of power. Almost without exception, the new majority party senators represented the far right. The assault was not long in coming. And so we all, I'm going to skip a lot here, but we all waited that dark month of December, fearful. All knew the storm was coming. All dreaded it. But none knew just how to fight back or where the first blow would fall. To me, it seemed much like the rising of a great prairie storm far out there on the horizon. First, there was only a faint darkness far off, distant rumblings and mutterings of thunder. Larger and larger it grows as it sweeps toward us. First, only a smudge of dark blue and spreading to right and left, capped by terrifying pinheads. Finally, it dominates our entire vision in lightning flashes and so on. On January 4th, 1995, the blows began to fall. Nothing was spared. Clean Water Act, Clean Air Act, the Wetlands Laws, the Endangered Species Act. Also carefully and painfully fashioned the strife and debates of 25 years previous, passed by bipartisan majorities. Bills were introduced to undo all the way it worked for, in an avalanche in the storm descended. And I described more on in the last page or so. I say, but now 18 months later, we surveyed the scene, and we almost noticed that almost none of it had come to pass. Of all the assaults mounted, from the Safe Drinking Water Act to wetlands to the Endangered Species Act, even efforts to, quote, reform, end quote, meaning eliminate the national parks themselves, they just have one or two big ones, that's all that. So that's why it's worth it to have our side of it back there too. It's a great system. And so I'm not afraid of it, because I'm 80 years old, so what's there to be afraid of?
I admire how Justice Douglas thought. Fascinating treatise, well aware of how do trees have standing. Good read. Could you explain a little bit more about what he did on the case before the Supremes to get the remand?
Yes. I skipped it, but what that case is all about is that when the matter of damming up, this last 120 miles of the city came up, say in 64, 63, 64, 65, you then had two competing potential dam builders. One was Washington Public Power Supply System, the public utilities, which is a big issue in Washington State.
Oh, yeah.
And for years. And the other was Pacific Northwest Power, which was the comment of the private power company elsewhere, in Washington State and elsewhere. So they were rivals. They wanted each the privilege of building the dam and doing it, and they were both true regular dam builders. So that's how it began. So the license, the federal license guy gave it to the private power companies. So the public side went to court. And the public side, ironically, in 1966, when it was taken before the Supreme Court, or was introduced there, was my own law firm. Small little law firm in Seattle, but they were. So they asked me if I would, we got this new case going to the Supreme Court. We'd like you to brief this one for us. Well, that's every lawyer's dream. A young lawyer got to go to the Supreme Court and carry somebody's briefcase in and brief it. But I said, please don't make me do this. I don't like hands. Like that. And someone else did it. But that was the issue. That's how it began. So the only argument they heard in January of 1967, or whenever it was, maybe later, probably about name, was who got to build the dam. And that's what Justice Douglas, who loved his country and things like that, didn't want to build. So somehow he persuaded his other justices that, not that I love wilderness and wild rivers, but they haven't considered all the issues here yet. That's the way he phrased it, a very skillful way to do it. And who knows what he really meant. But it's true, because no one had ever discussed whether the river should not be dammed before. That's what you did with rivers. You flood them up because look at all the benefits you get from it too. And it was the common wisdom in those days. So he opened up the whole door. Some of you may remember that 1967 to 68 or so, the first efforts in Congress to pass the Wild and Scenic Rivers Act. There had been no such thing as protecting the river before. And that was going through and did pass in 1968. So Justice Douglas, you had this famous over Dickens thing that, you know, that they're the Supreme Court, right? They can say whatever they want, and it's law, right? And so that's what happened. So that's how it happened. It was between the two. Justice Douglas somehow in chambers convinced the Senate, no, we don't need to go here yet. We don't need to decide this thing yet. We got to do this whole thing before. And if that had happened 10 years earlier, we wouldn't have succeeded. It was just a dance of time and fate that made it.
So was the remand to have a full exposition of the various positions relative to the river?
Yeah, the remand was on, as Douglas said in his opinion, the test is whether it's in the public interest. So
Okay.
license any data.
Cool.
The river still belongs to the public. It's not just who gets the river. That's the second question. The first one is should it be one? So that's a convincing little case.
Yeah.
That's what it says. And I just had to see it there, and boom, right on Lucy Tribune like that. Maybe someone else would too, but you know, those are new times. I think.
Cool, thank you.
Well, you say it kind of became the basis of NEPA. I mean, the idea of a full range of options. It was really Douglas that started that whole concept of, obviously you look at everything before you decide. And,
Yeah,
until then we didn't.
That was the era for it. This just came, a few years later, wasn't even, that's when it passed, wasn't it? And then the Endangered Species Act and all the other laws, Forest Management Act, all those, it was a very fertile time for rethinking how we do things when we did. And I didn't agree with all of it, nor did anybody else, but we used a lot of it, changed things. Back to
First off, I want to commend you, and I met Boyd a few weeks ago with the float trip. But I was born and raised in Enterprise to a logging family, and that's how I earned enough money to go to school in the summer. But I wish, and I'm thankful for all the preservation, but I really wish that there was some forethought. This county has not rebounded economically from the loss of logging, mill revenue, and to have had foresight and it appears that small communities, counties probably on both sides of the river are still reeling from everything that has happened, and it would be great to have had something in place so that the county wasn't so economically impacted. So I don't know how or if that can ever be in future conservation acts like this one, but the impact financially really needs to be looked at, because again, growing up here in this county was vibrant young people that didn't have any aspirations to leave the county, pursue school or other careers, could remain here and with living wage jobs, and that isn't the case. My two kids have college degrees and they work pretty hard. They would like to live here, but there just isn't very many living wage jobs anymore, and that's something that may have been overlooked.
Well, that's a valid point. I'm really glad you raised it. And for me at least, you know, if it's a public question that has to be decided, because the national forests belong to all of us. Those who make their living from extracting it, and those who like to drive and see it, or whatever, but they belong to all of us. And I can tell you for a fact that the Hell's Canyon legislation, for example, was heavily opposed by those interested on the side. And the same way with the mining additions and things like that. So I think they were thought about in living wages, and I'm very sympathetic because you're right, that may be one, but as long as they're public for us, we still sell a lot of Hancock and stuff, and we have them, it's a valid point. And to me, it never was anything personal, it's just how do you handle all these values, maybe could be thought about better, but to try. And for example, we tried, after some of the lawsuits, for 3 years we worked with sometimes and against the timber industry to pass the Forest Management Act. It's put on a whole new reforms in place and ways to, what I remember is a cartoon during some of those days in the Seattle Post-Intelligence, and it showed a logger at a good paying wage, and one place was a uncut forest, the other place was a forest of stumps, just to make the point. He said, hard choice for that person, but easy choice for the rest of us, because the stumps would be what we left. So how much of what was being logged, let's say, in parts of the volcano would still be there if we hadn't done that? But that's just a question the politicians have to decide, and we can each make our case and do it. For a long time, as you know, Senator Hatfield was obviously about 100% and for the industry in this thing. It was only Bob Patrick came along and but I need to keep on raising those things. Those are important points, and hear people like you make the living wage and get to go to college, clearly, that makes a difference here. From my standpoint, I would never want to see these places if they were just cut down and all that. But there's a limit to it all. Believe me, there's a limit to careful growth. Thanks for raising it. It's a very important statement. Yeah.
Well, just kind of speaking to that, you know, Alvin Josephy wrote a piece for Time magazine in, I think, 1955 about Missoula. And he stopped there, and at the time, he said there was a great relationship between the timber companies and the governments and the population. And understanding that enough timber had to be cut to keep everybody going, but they shouldn't cut too much. And that I know when we started Our Resources here, they brought up the people from Northern California, from college, that there was an understanding, but sometime in the 70s and 80s, that turns over to we cut as much and make as much money as we can. Does it all coincide with the whole national thing about quarterly profits versus long-term health of the economy?
It's always the balancing of the different public interests of the state. I don't know about here, but I do know that, you know Olympic Park, of course, you were there, and talk about locking up, if that's the term. There was a couple of billion board feet there, which was bitterly opposed by the timber industry in the 1930s. But now, even the former logging towns love it because it's a resource there forever. It's coming, bringing tourist money over and over and over again. So other kids go to college in other ways, but it doesn't mean it's over. So I think it has to be, I want it to be done correctly. And a few times I've been to Europe, you've seen logging done in a way that still preserves the beauty of it and the wildlife. And we've seen other things that just make a wasteland out of it. So I'm glad you're on the forefront of helping us to make sure it's done right wherever it's done. Yes?
I was wondering if you kept up to date with the 4 lower snake dams and the legal processes going over that, because I know there was kind of a statement by a judge back in the spring. Yeah, just don't know.
Well, this is lower snake dams. I remember in 1971 when I was still the rep out here, writing a little poem of sadness, the lower granite dam, the last one. And now the purpose of those dams in American River was to not so much flood control, but make Lewis in the seaport. And there are some barges going up down there. I've been on sometimes for it. But at what cost? A lot of other habitat or salmon and things like that. So it's there. So I'm beginning to think those dams are outliving their usefulness for the purpose they were established. May happen. Probably will happen someday. As things no longer become useful. Okay. So that's what it is. There's a movement afoot, as you know, to breach them. They've already breached a dam or two, and I don't know. They have the purpose, but there's other ways to do these things. Yeah. One thing I'd rather not have any controversy at all. I wish I lived in a country where everybody agreed with me. But I don't. We have to raise the issue. But it forces people like me on the other side to think about it. What do they want that still we could get? How can we get other flood control? How can maybe we shouldn't build on floodplains that we all found out from the recent hurricanes and things like that. Maybe we shouldn't. But anyhow, we've gone on about it. It's one of the fascinating things about being in this line of work. it's saving my country. According to our definition of it, but it's, I don't want to not have wood ever cut. I mean, I like wood, I love wood, but I just don't want to cut, let's say, the mine or Olympic National Park, but there are certain places like that. So, yes, sir.
I know you've also done a lot of work on endangered species, and I'm curious how you made that transition from kind of these big landscapes to individual species, and there's a lot of concern about loss of species worldwide now, like the sixth grade extinction and biodiversity collapsing quite rapidly in a lot of places. So I'm just kind of curious how you got into that and how you see biodiversity tying in with human society and maybe with large landscape protection as well.
Well, you're quite right, and it hurts to read some of the headlines. I can't stand it sometimes, but my involvement in native species was sort of natural. You know, you fall into things like that. I left Sierra Club in 1981 and went to Audubon for 15 years. And then, as human nature is, there was an internal coup d'etat inside the Audubon Society. You know, Audubon got a new boss, and the new boss is entitled to his own new ministers. You know, that's the way I put it in historical terms. And I was a minister of the old prince, vice president, of the 6 vice presidents there. And so this particular person didn't agree with a lot of ways things were being done, and he wanted his own staff in there. And so I was offered, feel like a lack of it, so environmental groups don't have much money, and they sure as heck never get pensions or anything like that. But I was the last one of the main people to be let go, fired, but I wasn't. Well, way to go was a federal express package around Thanksgiving Day in 1995. Saying, dear Mr. Evans, we got a good deal for you. It's called the Employees Early Voluntary Retirement Program. Well, I never offered to do that. And if you do that, you get a pension, which is incredible for an environmental, maybe not big one, but something, and you get a health care plan for life. And I was fierce. I said, how dare they do this? I love the people, they love me. My wife said, are you insane? And I did, just in time, because my 65th birthday came up a few years later, and I got this incurable cancer. I almost died from it in 2002, 2003. And thank God for the pension and the medical care plan for life and things like that. So it's all a little ignorant. Yeah, so I felt, oh, but I skipped the story. What about endangered species? Well, the coup d'etat got rid of me at the end of 1995, so I was out on the street too, and wondering what to do now. And for a while I became a consultant. Everybody became a consultant. I actually made more money, but I didn't like it. You know, it wasn't for beloved causes and things I really loved. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. And so then I heard this new job that opened up, the Endangered Species Coalition. It's a national, represents about 400 or 500 sportsmen and religion groups who want to save life, basically. Talk about pro-life statute, that's what I was in. And but I was very full. I knew they were almost bankrupt, morale was bad, so I didn't want to apply. They begged me to come and apply. So I did, and I wouldn't say I was flippant, but you know, I didn't care. They offered me the job halfway down the street. And so I took it. Well, amazingly, it did my sacrifice for the cause I believed in. But we did resurrect. We did raise it again. Now it's a potent and strong issue, as it should be, because it's a strong. I never read it. I never read it in 1973. I was reading it. Another thing, it passed the Senate 92 to nothing in 1973. It passed the House 355 to 4. Oh, non-controversial law. So finally I thought, hey, I'm going to be executive director. I'm going to read this thing. They asked a question about it, and I read it as a lawyer. I'm like, God, this is the strongest environmental law I've ever seen. No wonder the oil industry doesn't like it, and so on and so on and so on. And because it doesn't say, please save the species, pretty please, or anything like that. It says, you shall, and you shall protect the habitat. Wow. So that's what it was, and it can't be overdone like anything like that, but that's what saved as much as we got, because you got to save the habitats too. In Canada, they have a great endangered species law, but it only protects the individual critter. In Mexico, they have everything, but they never enforce anything. Here, we do, for better or for worse, and thank God I live in a country like this. So that's what we did. And yes, the species loss, which means habitat loss, which means climate change to some degree, which means other things, building subdivisions and floodplains, all these things, it hurts. It hurts a lot. Aldo Leopold is a famous conservation writer, said, to be an environmentalist is to travel and move the world. And I guess it's where it should hurt sometimes, because I love this place and love our part of the world. And thank God we had what we had the last 50 years, we have 50 more years to go. Yes.
Do you feel the Endangered Species Act has gone too far? I'm speaking as a rancher who the Canadian gray wolves were allowed to come in here. A NEPA wasn't done here in Oregon. And we had one of our local biologists who very early on said that Wallowa County wouldn't be able to support another predator like that. And we're living with the Oregon Wolf Plan, but 85% of the kills occur on private property, and I happen to be a private property owner who's dealt with the wolves. I'm curious as to what you feel if it can go too far, because I think it has gone too far.
Well, I think anything can go too far, including wolves. I don't know the particulars there. I do know that in some places, and maybe they aren't comparable, like Minnesota, wolves and ranchers seem to get along, maybe different in Wallowa. And part of that's learning to get along with whatever. I'm not going to offer a solution. Part of it maybe just means too many for a particular place. And so I'm not opposed to all that. To me, it's a miracle that there's any wolves at all. Because 20 years ago, there weren't. Almost not. Now they come back, and maybe they come back too much. I don't know. So I think any law can go too far. I want to know more about specifics here, details here, but and it's decided in a public forum. There's no legal with it, and I want to know why. Yes.
In regards to the wolves, what made the people that pushed to put the wolf on the endangered species list feel that they were endangered?
Oh, because I think once upon a time they were. There aren't any wolves in the world 48 states.
Well, yeah, but in Canada, there's like 60 to 80,000. As a species,
Yeah, right.
they're not endangered.
Yeah, and actually they made the list now, but the Canadian border hasn't been as a good supplier of wolves or grizzly bears for us for quite a while now because of all the what they do along the border. But I don't know the answer to that.
But, you know, we could deal with them before. Now, they, you know, since they put the Oregon Wolf Plan in effect, we've had no recourse to protect our private property, our livestock, our livelihood. Because I think what Ramon was saying, there are times when they go too far with these environmental regulations. And I'm not opposed to environmentalism. I consider myself a conservationist. We raise livestock. We also feed wildlife. We water wildlife and provide habitat for them. So, you know, it's not that we're opposed to animals, but when you're pushed to have something that you can't even regulate to save your own income and way of life. And the same thing happened on Snake River. When they made that a preserved area, they took ranches from people that, a lot of them had probably been raised there since they were little kids. And they were given almost nothing for those ranches. They were condemned and pushed out of there instead of working with people and allowing multi-use and, because I don't think the Hell's Canyon there was being torn up by ranchers anyway, but they totally lost everything, a lot of those ranchers. And, now we're protecting Indians, but nobody has ever gone back and said, oh, those poor ranchers that we took their livelihood from. So, winds of time change, but...
Well, they do, and I heard a different story about condemning. There's a big issue about it right after the law was passed. But I thought it was different from what you told me. There was condemnation that was fair, like you do for a highway or something like that. You want to do for a highway. But I thought it was a fair compensation. So it's interesting to me here that not so. It's that terrible. And, well, we still have a legal system out there, and if environmentalists can go to court, so can ranchers.
And I'll say that, when you were talking about environmentalists not being wealthy, but they have a lot of funding behind them. We don't. We would love to sue. We feel we really have a lawsuit for private property rights, but we do not have that kind of money. My folks were Sierra Club members, and I grew up hiking in the Sierras in California. And I now get things from Sierra Club fundraising with complete untruths about ranchers you know, please send us money for this because these ranchers are doing this. And it's, I think that's a very frustration. I feel like it's sort of flip-flop where we no longer have that ability to get our voice heard or get into the system. And believe me, we have tried very hard.
It's interesting, and I'm glad that we can discuss things like that. All I know from reading the Grand Reserve, which I subscribe to, that the last wolf killer has been killed in this horrible pack, whatever it's called. Anyhow, that a lot of killing of wolves was going on for the reasons you mentioned. So I thought it was under let's say control, but maybe not. And that's a matter of looking it up. I never checked. But I'd like to know also, and I don't know the answer to this, is that I know that in other parts of the world, which may not have our laws or anything like that, ranchers have devised way with more guard dogs and things like that to deal with. I don't want to belittle that. I'd just like to know more. Why, if it works in one place and there's not that much conflict, why does it not work in another place? And I don't know the answer. But I'd like to know from you guys.
Well, as far as guard dogs, the wolf that they have in the middle of Europe is a smaller wolf, and the big guard dogs can survive when the wolves come in. The big Canadian wolves that we have here, they are killing the guard dogs first, and then going in and eating the cows or the sheep.
That's easy.
So it's 1 o'clock, or after 1, and thank you very much, Brock. And I think what this brings up at the end, I think the Josephy Center is, we're a place that fortunately people with all kinds of different views can come and address things. And at some time maybe we need to have a conversation about wolves. Because I know ranchers that feel differently than you. And because I know environmentalists that feel differently than him. You know? There's a broad spectrum of opinion out there. And if we're going to have a conversation about wolves, we should do wolves. And so that's encouraged me that maybe I'll try to put something together, okay? And I'll talk to you about it. And you'll be there too. Well, Brock, thank you very much.